Have you heard about this personal and professional podcast?
Coaching in Session
with your host, Michael Rearden.
So we're just going to be talking about your work today, personal development, teacher, fitness coach. How long have you got into this work, and, what was the reason you got into it?
It really takes me back to, I'd have to say 2 years ago. That's where it really started for me. So I was selling real estate. My dad has a real estate brokerage. I got into it with him right after high school. And I was doing that for about 7-8 years. And I was making money. I was selling homes, managing homes here in San Diego. And, it was good. Life was good. But I just felt this feeling in my chest, like, is this really what I want for myself? And that thought would come up a lot, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what that meant. So I just kept going on. And one day I went to a real estate meeting, and my fiance suggested I go to this real estate meeting and pitch these 2 properties that I had listed. And I was like, okay, sure. So I go to this real estate meeting, and I'm introducing myself to a few people, and I see people get up in front of the room, and I'm sitting there and I'm getting nervous, Michael. I'm sitting there in my seat, and I'm like, my heart's beating really fast. My palms are sweating. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what are people going to say about me? What are they going to think about me when I get up in front of the room and speak? And all these thoughts, all these feelings were going through my mind. And the host of the meeting gets up and says, all right, do we have anyone else that has any other properties they'd like to share? Please raise your hand. Now, I knew that was my time to raise my hand. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, am I going to do what I said to do, that I was going to do? And I'm sitting there, and I decided I couldn't do it. I couldn't get up in front of the room. I couldn't raise my hand. I couldn't do it. I was like, I don't want to put myself in that fire and that nervousness in front of everyone in the room. So I left that meeting just crushed. Like, I can't believe I said I was going to do this, and I couldn't do it. And now I have to go home and tell my fiance that I couldn't do it. Like, how disappointing. Like what kind of man am I? Right? I was just so crushed. And I get home, I tell her what happened. Obviously, I'm disappointed, I'm upset. And I decided, you know what, this can either make or break me. And I decided for it to make me. So I started looking up online, how can I conquer the fear of public speaking? And I came across a couple of YouTube videos, came across Toastmasters. And a few days later, I go to my first Toastmasters meeting. And I'm in the parking lot. It's like 6:58 in the morning on a Friday morning. I'm like, where's this room? I know it's going to get started soon. I need to get in there. And I'm wandering around this office building, and I can't find it. There's no signs. There's no labels on the door or anything. And I'm walking around. Meanwhile, inside the room, the president of the meeting gets up and says, all right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 7 a.m. We're going to go ahead and kick off the meeting. We're going to start with any guests this morning. Do we have any guests that want to come up and introduce themselves? And at that moment, I'm walking through the door. And he goes, looks like we have a young man that just walked in. Young man, why don't you come on up here, introduce yourself, and conquer that fear of public speaking? Puts the microphone right in my face. I'm just hit. My heart's beating really fast. I grab the microphone. I shuffle up to the front of the room, extremely nervous. Hi, I'm Michael. I went to a real estate meeting and planned to speak, but I couldn't. So here I am to improve my public speaking skills. And I gave him the microphone, quickly found my seat, and just watched the rest of the meeting. And I left that meeting just so proud of myself, because I couldn't do that a few days before. I couldn't just get up there, introduce myself, and talk for, 30 seconds, a minute. So I was up there for 5-10 seconds, introduced myself, said that, and that was it. So I left that meeting, and I was like, oh my gosh, I did it. I went home, told my fiance, like, wow, I went up there and introduced myself, as terrible as it may have been. And that, to me, as terrible as it may have been, that was progress. That was progress as opposed to a few days before, where I couldn't get up and introduce myself. So I kept going the week after, the week after, the week after. And after 6 months, I started giving speeches. And people would say to me, wow, you've grown so much. I remember the first time that you came here and you could barely even introduce yourself. And I would think to myself, like, really? It doesn't feel like that, because every time that I came, I just kept getting that much better. So then I wanted to take it further. So I started going to different clubs all throughout San Diego. And when I went to a different club, it was like, oh my gosh, Michael, all those same feelings as that first meeting, all that same nervousness, that discomfort, but I pushed through it. Then I started going 3, 5, 7, 9 meetings a week, all of 2023, speaking, giving speeches, inspiring them with my story of how I overcame my fear of public speaking. And then I wanted to take it further. I'm like, well, what else can I do? So then I put on a personal development seminar, spoke for 45 minutes, had about 30, 40 people in attendance. It was awesome. And then through that whole process, became a personal development coach, helping people online with mindset, fitness, and nutrition. And then a year and a half after that first meeting, became the president of that Toastmasters Club. And to where we are today, 2 years from my first meeting, it was about a week ago.
I can feel your, being lost looking for a Toastmasters rooms, because they just find a random spot. They find a library room, they find a school building, and it's kind of like in the most random spot. So like, I think the first Toastmaster I went to it was at like a Boys and Girls Club, like in one of their science rooms. So I had to go in, I had to ask like the some workers there. There was some after school stuff going on with the kids in the gym. And we're like, oh yeah, you have to go down the hallway and take a left or something. And I was like, okay, cool. And they don't make it easy to get to those rooms. And I can understand, someone trying to get to Toastmasters, trying to overcome their fear of public speaking. And they're like, well, God is telling me that, I shouldn't be going because I can't find the room. And, you were just, like remaining consistent and, hungry for that, like I couldn't do something. How can I do that thing I couldn't do? It's a powerful mindset to have. And I know, from experience and then from talking to other coaches who have gone through some type of adversity, some type of challenge, they know firsthand where it is. And I know it's more relatable to individuals who go through that journey also, because if you have a perfect life and everything is good, right? People are going to say, well, you don't know how I feel. And the best coaches are the ones that are relatable. The ones can show their weaknesses and show how they overcome those, challenges and, types of mindsets, because, the fear of public speaking is all internal. We can talk to our best friend, right? We can go to the bar and drink and have a good time and maybe even talk to a stranger. But the moment we say, oh, all these people, eyes on me, no one's saying a word, it's, like our mind becomes own worst enemy. How can you and how do you stop the mind from telling you all these negative thoughts and saying that you're insignificant, you're not good enough? How can we start to develop that mind to something more prosperous?
So many great things that you said in there, just to touch on what you were saying about like having that humility, like being relatable, really, it's something that's so important, especially as a coach, because you have to be relatable to help someone else. Because if you just tell them, hey, you're this high and mighty person and you don't feel fear and you break through everything that comes in your way, it's not giving people much hope, right? They want to see that you have gone through the same things that they're going through. And that's what happens when I go and speak at all these clubs. I go and speak there. I'm not getting paid. I'm going and speaking there because I know that the story that I have, what I went through, every single person in that room has gone through that or is experiencing that. So I know how valuable that is to share and be relatable. Now, to answer your question of how do you get to that point where you overcome those thoughts that are stopping you or telling you that you're not able to do this, or, the fear aspect of it. You must go at that until it goes away. There's no other way around it. You can't go around it. You have to go through it. You have to face it head on, and you tell it what you are. You're not letting it tell you what you are. And that's the only way that I know how to do it. And I believe that's the only way to do it. I don't know. I haven't met anyone that's told me that they've been able to go around it, but you override it in a sense. When I was first speaking, Michael, I was so terrified. And like you said, public speaking is all internal. No one was thinking anything of me. No one was saying anything about me. It was all what I thought. So when I realized that, okay, I just need to continue. I need to persist. As difficult as it may be, I know that there's going to be a point where I get to that I surpass those thoughts. And that's what it took. It just took the persistence and the consistency of me going up there and facing that every single time and realizing, oh, everyone's just coming up here and showing us how comfortable they are with themselves, right? Self-mastery depends on self-honesty. So how often are you really being honest with yourself? I reflect daily. Well, I did this thing yesterday and I was like, gosh, why did I do that? And the thing is, I don't beat myself up over it. I laugh at myself. I'm so disassociated from this identity of who I am and who I've been and stuff. When we get past that, then we can start to actually make progress. But when we are so caught up in those thoughts, thinking that those thoughts are us, it's really hard to get out of it. But understand and recognize that those thoughts aren't you.
Yeah, I remember when I was a teacher, or when I became a teacher, and then I have to go in front of a classroom with all the kids, and you just have all those thoughts like, am I good enough, am I ready, and things like that. And it was almost like a sink or swim moment, because you're already there and the kids are there waiting for you. So it's like, all right, I'm waiting for me to show up, but the reality, I didn't have a choice. I had to show up for them. So it's like all eyes on me. What is he going to do? You have to have the confidence. And the sink or swim, type of mentality, I think is important to understand, at least, because you can get thrown to the wolves, and sometimes you learn how to survive. I'm not sure if you saw the movie. It's like, I think it's called The Gray or something like, where it's like Neil Nemson, or I forget his name. I'm terrible with names and actors, but he like got a plane crash and he had to go fight some wolves or something like that. He had to live, like, I know I did a terrible job, like reenacted that whole movie scene, but it was a moment for him to either do or die, and he chose to live, right? So he did whatever he had to do. Most people, like when they get a bit of adversity, it's like, oh, end of the world. All right. Like, things are not going my way. I didn't get the job. I didn't get the girl. I didn't get the guy, whatever it be. So we just, give ourselves a circumstance of, this is not for me. What happens to a person in that moment when they say, instead of, this is not for me, or, and then they give themselves a mindset more of, if this is not for me, what is for me? What should I be focusing on? It's more of, just because you failed, it doesn't mean you can't succeed. And I know many people, when they fail one time, that becomes almost like their story. Like, I failed. I tried and I wasn't successful. How do you help people through that moment? Because I know many people are living that right now. They have tried to do something, they have failed, and they almost like they got knocked down. This is Rocky, and they can't get back up.
It's about progress, not perfection. So when we focus more on the steps that it takes than the result itself, then we're unstoppable. So don't focus on just attaining the result. because in reality, the result isn't necessarily what you want. What you want is the person that you're being and becoming through that process, the character that you are molding and shaping through that process. Because recognize that that result is not the end goal. It's never the end goal. There is no end goal. Life is forever for expansion and fuller expression. Really think about what it is that you want to be. It's not going to come from the things outside of you. It's going to come from within you. And it's so much deeper when you put it that way. But when you think about it, that's all we really want in this life. We don't want the external things. We want the fulfillment from within. We want the deep meaning, like the real impact, contribution in the world. And that's only going to come from asking these deeper questions. So if someone's consistently failing or having trouble with failure and kind of looks at that as like, that's just what it is. There was a great quote that I read in Napoleon Hill's book, Outwitting the Devil. And he says, successful people use failure as a stepping stone to achievement, while others use failure as an alibi as to why they did not attain the result. Failure is amazing. It is literally the flip side of the coin of success. You cannot have success if you don't experience failure. So recognize that anyone that's ever done anything great in this world has experienced failure. You're not the only one. And when you realize that, you stop putting as much focus on it and you just start using it to build you. Every speech that I gave early on was terrible compared to where I am now. But at that time, it was like I would get in my car after I gave that speech and I'd just be so upset with myself, like, because I would just be focusing on how bad it was. I'm like, and then after some time, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm going to feel failure every time I give a speech. It's natural because I can always improve it. Everything can always be improved. So just recognize the progress that's being made. There's growth that's taking place. So when you feel that failure, know that that's a good sign. Okay, how can I get better? How can I improve it? Think about it. Someone like Tom Brady, who's arguably one of the greatest football players to ever live, you think that he's like, I'm good. Like, I'm just a great player. I don't experience failure. I don't have to work on anything today. He's constantly working on things. I mean, now he's retired, or I don't even know what's going on with him. But he's constantly working on things. Anyone that's a great, they're not like, oh, I'm a great. I don't have to do anything. But the person that is experiencing failure, maybe is stuck, they're going to look at them and think, oh, they're great. They don't have to do anything. That's not true. No matter what level you get to, you're going to experience failure. You're going to experience setbacks. But it's what you do about it that makes the difference.
For Tom Brady, he just did an interview with Grant Cardone. And in the interview, Grant had asked him about like his upbringing and how he was able to succeed so wildly. And he said that he had supportive parents, his mom, his dad. And he was telling a story of one time he went to a football camp and he was the slowest runner. And his mom would just kind of boost him up saying, hey, baby, you ran so fast today. You were like, like lightning. And, like he knew his mom was lying. He was like, come on, mom, like everyone else is faster than me. And then like, every day she just kept with the positivity saying, you're getting faster, you're getting better. And that was enough for him, where he just has a strong support system. And many people today, they don't have that strong support system. I know in Toastmasters, you go there to confide in individuals where you can come collectively to come together to everyone help enhance each other and themselves. But in our world today, it's so singular, where I'm going to do what I have to do to enhance myself, and you're going to typically do what it is. And this is just kind of like a passing go, right? So, but there are communities that individuals grow and prosper. I know, the podcast and what we do with Reven Concepts and everything, it's about uplifting, building a community. But many people, they don't have that source for for themselves, where would you say is the best place for someone to find a supportive community?
I mean, honestly, I would say that the best place for you to find it, just solely for the fact that you could find anything, is on social media, right? Like you with your coaching, me with my coaching, my community, like you find people that are for the good, right? That you click with, that you vibe with, that are on the right path that you want to be on. Like I get up every single day, I journal, I meditate, I go to the gym, push myself through an intense workout, and I eat the right food. I don't eat junk food. I don't eat sugar, all this stuff that's going to put your body out of balance and your mind out of balance. And I've dropped all my vices, drugs, alcohol, pornography, hate, judgment, all these things that people, like, it's so easy for people to gravitate towards those things because it's like an instant, like, dopamine hit. Just take that hit or have that drink or, hate on someone. Like that's a dopamine hit too. If you're out in public and you talk some shit to someone, you're going to feel good. Oh, I felt good. Yeah. I told him off. But later you're going to regret it. And regret is your guideline. So when you recognize that regret is your guideline, you start to cut out all these things that aren't true to you. Right? And that's you're listening to your inner voice. That's our conscience. That's the authentic voice of God. I call it the higher self because it's calling you to a higher way of being. Now, if you want to find a community or people in your life, I would just say do what feels best to you, what you feel in your gut. If there's people that you just don't vibe with, don't click with, then don't be around them. And don't trip if you don't have many friends, because to get where you want to go, there's some people that aren't going to come with you on the ride. So I would say best place for you to find it would be social media, just because that you can kind of cut out all the fat and just see directly what you want to see based on someone's Instagram page, based on their stories, what they put out, right? That's one of the best things that I've used that has helped me keep in close communication with my clients, the people that follow me, my community, and just spread that good, positive message. Because the truth is that a lot of people want to see you do well. They want to see you do better, but they don't want to see you do better than them. And that's one of the most common things that I see, like you were saying about Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a great community. There's a lot of people in the community that do want to see you do well and cheer you on. Like I go to all these clubs and people are like, wow, like that's so great to hear your story. But then there's other people that, maybe want to aspire to be a public speaker or develop themselves as a public speaker, and they get mad and they don't like that. And it causes, like, they don't necessarily say anything to me, but I can feel it. Like the energy doesn't lie. And there's a few people that I've been around when I've given speeches and stuff, and I can just feel their energy, and I don't, it's hard, Michael, because I don't like it, but at the same time, I know that they're just going through something within them, and I've given them that space, and at times they will show glimpses of like, hey, that was one of your best speeches, but then other times they'll be like, gosh, this drove me crazy when you did this. So it's just important to weed out the people in your life that are not going to be supportive of you and won't celebrate you, even if they're family, even if they're really close to you. They may be family, they may be blood, but if they aren't vibing with you, if they're not clicking with you, then don't feel any shame in not being around them. You got to do what's best for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. When you see someone doing better, it's almost like an instinct that you have to learn to work through, where it's like, okay, they're doing better than me. They're better than me. Okay, I'm not in a good place. So what are some options? Well, I can hate them. I cannot support them. So hopefully I can catch up to them. It's almost like you're trying to self-sabotage them, but in reality, you're self-sabotaging yourself. When we start to uplift and be of service to other people, not only do we feel better and more invigorated to do the things that we should be doing, it's also building a community, is creating a ripple effect. And that comes back to many people don't necessarily see that a helping hand is going to one day help you too. It's like you're lifting all of these people up and you're looking up like, who's going to lift me up? When you were the person who was always lifting people up, why can't you lift yourself up? And I understand, like, this is not like doing it by yourself. Like, we are not a lone warrior, but we do together. Just as your fiance says, hey, it would be a good idea for you to go and, pitch those 2 properties, like, you're like, yeah, that is a good idea. We do it together, where sometimes our blind spots are, are in another person's view and and they can see it. And those good people we should embrace. And social media is a great place for meeting individuals. I did want to ask you a follow-up question to that, because social media, there's the good, bad, and the ugly when it comes to finding, a good group of people. And I have found that there's a good mindset to follow when you're trying to find a community online. Should a person find a community of like-minded individuals or individuals with a mind that they would like to attain?
It depends what you want at the end of the day, because if you're around people that are very like-minded, they're going to be doing the same things that you're doing. They're vibing with the same things you're vibing with, maybe watching the same shows that you're watching, doing the same things that you're doing. And that's great. That's great to have a good life. But I'm someone who's very driven and I'm very extreme. So when I get on something, like, I get on it and that's my kick, and I'll wear it out. Like, I'll go to the same restaurant and that's it. Like, for the next 6 months, I'm just hitting that spot. And then after that, I'm like, oh, I wore it out, and I move on to the next thing. So my suggestion, it depends what you want. If you want to thrive in this world, be successful and do well for yourself, I would find the people online whose mindset you would like to attain. They can have some things that you vibe with similarly, which they probably will. If you're following them or you're coming across their content and you like it, you're going to vibe with something of it. But there's so much for you to learn. And the sooner that you start, the sooner that you learn and you grow, right? I mean, the only way that to even think that I'd even be on this podcast right now talking to you 2 years ago, I would have thought you were crazy. Like, who am I to say anything? What do I have to share? But you know what? Through these last 2 years, I've gone through so much experience and done more than the majority of people. That's why I'm able to share with you what I've learned and how I've grown. But the truth is that you're going to be, the thing is that 95% of the world is not winning. So that means that you're going to be around a lot of people who aren't winning. So with that being said, you're going to have to be able to weed out and put your blinders on and navigate situations and experiences for the betterment of you. Because I've realized that no one's going to look out for you like you look out for you. You need to get your own back. And it ties back into the previous question that you asked about having a support group. I haven't had like the most supportive family or friends around me. My fiance is extremely supportive. Some of my family is, but I've just realized, like, you can't rely on other people to do things for you. You can't rely on your happiness to come from someone else. You can't rely on love to come from someone else. You can't rely on support to come from someone else, because you know what? They're not going to give it to you the way you want it, the way you can give it to you. So you need to look within and give it to yourself. And how do you do that? You do that by being disciplined, by cutting out the junk food, by putting yourself through a strenuous workout, by dropping the drugs, alcohol, pornography, the hate. Because you know what happens when you do that? You feel better about yourself. And when you feel better about yourself, You're loving yourself. That is literally the epitome of self-love. For you to sacrifice what you are doing right now, that's going to give you an instant pleasure, to having a deeper satisfaction later. And that's the thing. I had to say no to going out with friends and going and drinking. I had to say no to going out to the casino, going to the strip club, or, like there's so many of these things that are so fun in the moment, but it leads to terrible behavior and pain later, not just for yourself, but for the people in your life.
I was reading a book. It's called The Genius Zone. They talked about many of the things that you have just said about, like, sometimes you are looking at that support and you see all the things like are going in your mind, like this person just wants something for me, or they're not supportive. Like we're giving them their own narrative. And in the book, it talks how there's things that we can control, there's things that we cannot control. And for the things that we cannot control, we should be able to relinquish them a lot more quickly and more readily. But yet many people they ruminate on this idea of the things that they can't control. They say, I want to be able to control everything in my situation. And that's just not reality. Like, we can't control what someone is going to think about us. The lady who I think you were saying early on, like some days she's good and some days she's not good in Toastmasters. We can't control how she's feeling. Like, we can't control her day. We can wish her well, right? We have control of that. We can not allow, her behavior to influence our mood. We have control of that to some degree. But at the end of the day, you have to figure out, how can you get in control of your actions? And that is the question I want to ask you. How do you get in control of those actions? Because you said you got rid of devices, you got rid of the drugs and going out with friends and pornography and all of these things. And there's many people in the world who struggle with that, where they're like, I want to give it up, but it seems like I keep going back to the hamburger. I keep going back to the hot dog and the french fries and the pizza because it tastes so good, but it's not really good for you. How can people say, you know what, enough's enough? How can they just cut out and trim out all the fat, as we were, talking about, and focus on being in the best place possible?
Well, like I said, self-mastery depends on self-honesty. So the first step would be to be honest with yourself. Okay, what is it that I know I shouldn't be doing? And that is, whether it be the junk food, whether it be not working out, whether it be the pornography, whatever it is, you first become aware of it. Okay, so now you're aware that you don't want to do these things. Okay, I know that when I go and eat that junk food, I feel like shit after, and I end up really regretting it, and I actually wish I didn't do it. Okay, I know that that's going to take place if I indulge in that. Okay, you're aware. Now is the hard part. When that time comes, it could be a certain time in the day, maybe at 8 o'clock at night after you eat dinner, that sugar craving comes up. You're not getting it at 8 a.m., but only at 8 at night because your body's been programmed. Now, when that time comes, it's 8 o'clock after dinner, and you get that feeling of wanting a dessert, wanting some sugar, you're going to get a rush of chemicals, a rush of feeling in your body that's going to be telling you to go to the pantry and go get this, ice cream or whatever it may be. Is the part where you have to say, nope, I told myself, I know I'm going to regret this. I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling right now, but you know what? I cannot do it. You have to make a decision and be firm with yourself, no matter how you feel. No matter how you feel in that moment. You've made a commitment and you said, okay, just this one day, I'm not going to do that dessert, and I'm going to see if I can get through it. Okay. You say that you're not going to do it. Keep that commitment to yourself. And then you push through it, and then you wake up the next day. And you're like, okay, I did it. I didn't have that dessert. Wow, I did what I said I could do. Okay, now the next day comes. You're going to get tested again. But what I've realized, Michael, is that when we consistently push ourselves through adversity, self-inflicted adversity, we're going to get more used to those moments that are difficult, and we're going to be able to push through them a lot easier. So for me, I've developed a lot of discipline. It really started with me when I was younger. When I was a senior in high school, I smoked weed every single day with my friends. Like 24/7, I was high. And it came to be like 2 months before the end of the year. And my friends were all telling me, oh, I'm going to Arizona, I'm going to Texas, I'm going to San Francisco, I'm going to all these different colleges. And I thought to myself, where am I going? I'm not going anywhere. I didn't even take the SAT, ACT. I had no choice of college. I had no option other than a community college. So I was like, okay, well, I'm clearly not doing something right. Like, I can't continue to live like this. So I made that decision like 2 months before the end of high school. I said, you know what? On graduation day, I'm going to quit smoking weed. I'm not going to smoke weed anymore. So graduation came, had my last hurrah with my friends. After that day, I never smoked weed again. And that, to me, was an example of me expressing my will. One of our higher mental faculties is the will, for us to be able to give ourselves a command and follow it. And that, it was one of the hardest things I had to do. But you know what? It developed that faculty of my mind to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to do it. And however I feel, I'm not going to do it. And believe me, I had tremendous temptations. Like, the emotional roller coaster that I went on was traumatizing. It was painful, but you know what? I got through it. And that's what I realized, the strength of the will. I have a cousin right now that's dealing with quitting chewing tobacco. And he's been chewing tobacco since he was 16 years old. And he's like 30. He's like 30. So he was telling me he wanted to quit and stuff. I said, you know what? I'm going to tell you how to do it. Because I did it too. I would do it with him when I was like 17, 18. I did it like 2-3 years. And I was like, okay, I got to quit that too. But I told him, I said, you know what? Here's how you quit. Are you ready? Here it is. You just quit. You just stop doing it. That's it. It's so simple. But yes, it is hard. But what in this life that's worth it is easy? Nothing. So we have to discipline ourselves. And that's where it comes from, what I teach in my program. Having the early wake-up time. Having the reflection. Being honest with yourself. Dropping the vices. Going and working out every single day and putting yourself through an intense workout. And then you eat the right foods to get your body in the right shape that you want to be in. And that process that I coach people on and teach is what got me to where I am today. And that process is continually pushing you through adversity, strengthening your mind so that you can have, be, and attain whatever it is that you want in this life. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah. I like the mix of awareness and discipline, because it's like the recipe for greatness, I believe. You know, like, I don't know if you grew up with your grandmother and if she was a good cook, but if she was, you think about grandma's cooking, you're like, oh man, I remember grandma's cooking. And then sometimes you might go someplace. I know here in Austin, we have a lot of food trucks. And sometimes you find grandma's cooking at one food truck. And like you were saying, you go to that food truck 6 months in a row. You're like, this brings back so many wonderful memories. And there's so many more wonderful memories that people would, or realities that people would like to reach, and it is going to require that they have to be aware of their situation, what they want to go for, and they have to have the discipline to help them get there. They can't say they're going to do something and then they don't show up. They can't just, envision this grandiose life and, have no action, right? They have to be accountable. And one of the things I love about coaching is that, we are there to hold people accountable, because if they want something, right, skin in the game is, getting a coach. But then the second aspect is, if you truly want it, you're going to do everything that you have to do, including getting rid of the things that no longer serve you. And, our conversation is just a start for people to, begin that process. So as we begin to wrap up, I would love for you to give some final words, and then for you to tell the audience where they can find you so they can reach out to you.
Well, I mean, you said it clearly. It's really a matter of getting rid of the things that are not getting you where you want to go. See, success is a subtraction process. It's not an addition process. You don't need to add anything to your life. You need to remove things that are not getting you where you want to go. Remove the thoughts, remove the actions, the behaviors that are blocking you from actually taking the actions that you have to take to get to where you want to go. It's not this magical, all of a sudden, boom, one hit wonder. Your life's completely flipped around and you're set for life now. That's not what this is. That's not what this life was designed to be, right? And when you realize that, you realize that that type of thinking comes from the ego. Like you think that you're just going to get to this point at some point where you're just like, I'm good. But you're never going to get to that point. That's the ego thinking that even exists. See, that's the difference, is that the successful people, they have a growth mindset. The people that are not successful and in their ego, they have a fixed mindset. They say, this is who I am. Oh my gosh, people are going to laugh at me about who I am right now. That's you at one moment in time. That's not you forever. And the thing is that you're always growing, you're always expanding. So don't trip about where you are. We all start somewhere. Everyone started somewhere. You could look at someone like Michael Jordan and you can say, oh my gosh, he didn't make his high school basketball team. Like, it's so crazy though when you get that perspective. The truth is, all it is awareness. When you realize, oh shit, like these are all just people. I think when you're in the ego, you just think that, oh my gosh, these people are different than you. They're not. So this is all that I share and coach people on in my program. Help them develop discipline and mindset, fitness, and nutrition, and align with their higher self to live their best life. So you can find me on my social media channels, Michael Vincent Mindset. Go to michaelvincentmindset.com to submit your application, get involved in the program, and really change your life. You know, it was only 2 years ago that I couldn't even introduce myself to someone or in front of a room. And now I'm speaking all over online and 5 to 7 times a week. Like, it's crazy how fast your life can change, but it comes from getting the help, getting the right teachers, the right coaches, the right mentors, and putting yourself on the right path and removing all those things that I was talking about. So get in touch with me. Love to hear from you and get your thoughts on this podcast, on life, on everything in general, and we'd love to connect.
Perfect. And I'll make it easy as always. Check out the links in the description box below, social medias, follow, all of those good things. And I was just thinking of this analogy of like when you go to the grocery store, you typically get things that you like. So if you like strawberries, you get some strawberries. But let's say you hate blackberries. You're not going to get any blackberries. So like, I don't like blackberries. Now, you get to choose what you buy at the grocery store. And when you join a community, you get to see what you want, what you like, and then take away what you need versus, like everything in here. I want to buy the whole grocery store. I remember when I was young, I wanted to buy the whole grocery store. I was like, I want to buy that. I want to buy this. I don't need it, but this is what I want. And at some point I realized it wasn't so much about what I wanted, all the time. It was what I needed. And a coach is a wonderful tool to help you understand, realize what you need. Sometimes we can get in our way and we should not be that obstacle for ourselves, right? They say the greatest wall we will ever climb is in our mind, and we put it there. So let's learn how to get those sledgehammers and dynamite and knock down those walls. Reach out to a coach, to an individual, to a community that's going to help uplift you, because the process that, we're here to develop is you in being the best version of yourself. So if that sounds like someone that you would like to meet, check out the links again in the description box below and begin that process today. I want to thank you, Michael, for coming on and sharing and talking about your work today.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.